So good evening and welcome. I hope everybody's got a drink that wants one. But thank you all for being here. I know it's been an eventful week, but state of the school, I know, is a topic that's near and dear to everybody's heart. I'm Tom King, and I'm the president of the Board of Trustees. My family, my wife Lynn, who's also on the board, and my 3 kids have been at the school for 7 years. I've been on the board for 3 years, and this is my first year as board president. It's also the first time I've been through kind of soup to nuts the strategic planning process at King. I've been through it many times in the corporate setting, but this is the first time here. And I have to say, it was an incredibly thorough process, and I think the result is extremely ambitious. As you can see from the agenda, tonight is about the strategic plan, and it's about the direction of our school. And after I speak briefly, you'll have the opportunity to hear from Dr. Eshu, her colleagues, and some students. Our planning process, our strategic planning process, has spanned 2 years, and I want to thank the broad community who were incredibly engaged. We talked to parents, trustees, students, faculty, alumni, parents of alumni, and everybody helped shape the vision you'll hear about tonight by providing input via surveys, interviews, and many, many working sessions. And throughout the whole process, there was genuinely goodwill and unity of purpose as we all focused on the question of how do we make this one of the best schools, not just in the region, but in the country. And the result of that exercise is a far-reaching, ambitious strategic plan that the whole board is enthusiastic about. We've unanimously approved it, and I have to say it was amazing partnership between the entire community, which makes me highly confident as we move to the execution phase. The timing is also optimal. We're definitely in a world that's changing, in a world in which our students are going to need different skills and different experiences to succeed. Education has to continue to prepare kids, students, to thrive in a rapidly changing world. That's the mission of the King School, and that's the lens through which we made all our decisions. So we've been working on this plan, as I said, for 2 years, and I've been living with the ideas and the concepts and what it will mean for our school and our community for a long time. I recognize it will take some time for the community to absorb the plan, and tonight is just a step in that process. We want to and will create forums like this and communications to both share the plan and answer your questions. I also want to thank my fellow trustees, most of whom are here tonight, for joining tonight, but also for their work on the strategic plan. Setting strategy is the most important duty that we do on your behalf. The trustees work for you, and we're all keen to engage on this. It's our most important topic. So please, in the reception, find a trustee, ask them whatever questions you have about the board, the plan, the process. We're keen to engage. I would like to take a minute before I turn it over to Karen to introduce the trustees and to thank them for their hard work. So we elect trustees, a third of the board every year, so we have 3 classes. The most recent class up there is Claude Amadeo, Kyle Clark, Ella Cohen, Nancy Heaton, Greg Jansen, and Peter Resnick. The class prior to there, the first-term trustees, Matt Allard, Nancy Armstrong, Jess Struble, Stacy Gain, Rich Goldman, Miriam Kagwa Mwenda, Ed Moulet, Bo Taylor. And the oldest group is my wife Lynn, Todd Raker, and Elisa Savitz. It's not actually the oldest group. Here's the oldest group. Myself, Doug Perlman, who's our first vice president, Dan Ozismir, who deserves a special shout out. He was the chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee and the Strategic Planning Steering Committee. He was tenacious, patient, great conceptual thinker, really worked on all of our behalfs very hard. Carmen Fela, our secretary, Rob Holtz, our treasurer, and 3 at-large members, Tom Conhini, Misun Freeman, and Eric Gerster. So thank you all. Of course, we couldn't have a plan with this scale of ambition if we didn't have a great CEO. And so it's my pleasure to introduce our amazing and charismatic head of school, Dr. Karen Escher.
All right, good evening, everybody. I hope that you, oh, that's right, you responded, that was great. Let's try it again. Good evening, everybody. See, everybody knows this now. This is great. So welcome to State of the School Part 2. I am really, really excited to share with you really what is, I think, the core and the essence of our strategic plan tonight. Now, just to add to what Tom said, really, since I've been at the school now, I have heard from so many people about what you value in this school, what you know that we do well, where you know and hope that we're going to grow. And so as I start to describe to you what's in this plan, I really do hope that you hear your own voices being spoken to you through the plan. Because really, this has been a community effort. There were smaller groups of us, of course, that kind of worked together and hammered it out. And this really is a plan for all of us, because all of us are here because we are deeply committed to the mission, and because we know this is a school that can do things for students that other schools both cannot do and will not do. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so proud to be here. So I also want to add my thanks to all of the members of the Board of Trustees and all of my colleagues on the leadership team and the steering committee, because we did put a lot of work into this. It took a little longer, actually, than I thought that it would, but that's because we really took seriously our job in looking ahead, not just to 2025, which is when the strategic plan ends, but really looking ahead to 2030, 2050, because our job is to make sure that our school is here for the long term. And so I'm going to start tonight by describing to you the strategic vision that we have articulated and that is manifest in our strategic plan. So this vision is really the foundation for all that you're going to hear us describe tonight. So it starts like this. First and foremost, at King School, we affirm our commitment to the student experience as our top priority. Now, that in and of itself is a bold vision. And to achieve that bold vision, we strive to be the country's premier pre-K-12 research-driven institution in which students embrace open minds and courageous thinking. That is our vision for our school, both now and in the future. Now let's take a minute to unpack that so I can explain a little bit more about what these things mean. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about student experience, and specifically the way that that actually works through student engagement. Now, one of the reasons why I was drawn to this school from the beginning is because this is a school that actually takes childhood and adolescence seriously. And every teacher here and every staff member here is committed to ensuring that the experience that students have as they're learning through our programs is excellent and optimal. Really, every single day, this is our goal. And the reason why this actually differentiates us from other schools is this. All schools are certainly interested in educating students, and educating students as well as they possibly can. But not every school really cares that much about how the students experience it. They're interested in other kinds of outcomes. But what we know here is that the journey is just as important as the destination. And so as we launch this new strategic plan, again, we are affirming that commitment to the way that students engage with their learning. We think that's the best. Here's why. It's one thing to be able to memorize a bunch of stuff. I actually don't think that's very valuable, especially these days. Just knowing a bunch of stuff doesn't really do much for you in our rapidly changing world. And at the same time, what we know about students is that when they are not just allowed, but encouraged to start curious and to stay curious, that actually makes them better learners. So, it's easy for us to look at the pre-K, for example, and expect that they're going to be curious. They're born that way, right? And because they're only 3 and 4 years old, they're still pretty close to that. So that's easy to see. And what I love about this school is that we actually expect 6th graders to still be curious. We expect 12th graders to be curious, even if they've already gotten into college. And the reason why is because when we leverage students' curiosity and we pay attention to their interests and help them to leverage that, that keeps them coming back for more. They actually go more deeply that way. They have different relationships with their teachers, and the teacher-student relationship is core to students' ability to be successful in school. So it's the experience that is marked by really deep engagement with students doing their learning that really makes this different. And again, that's a stake that this school put in the ground a long time ago, and we're doubling down on it in this strategic plan. Next, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about research. And you've heard me from this microphone now talk with you about research before. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear that when I say the word research, I'm not talking about the research that, as I look around the room at our kind of collective ages, that we probably did when we were in school. There's no Encyclopedia Britannica that you take off the shelf and you open it and it crackles because nobody uses it and it smells funny and you get the one thing and then you just put it back on the shelf. And it's not even the modern version of that. It's not just asking the Google for something that you want to know. Anybody can do that. What our students need, and everything about this strategic plan is about what students need and our courage in actually stepping forth and giving that to them. What our students need to learn how to do is how to research well so that, first of all, they can take the information that we all know has proliferated and start to be discerning about it. As long as our students start to understand how to tell high-quality information from poor-quality information, God knows there's a ton of both out there, as our students start to learn how to make meaning from the information that they're able to access, that's when they start to become smarter. On top of that, as students are doing this, they're doing this actually for a particular purpose, and this is why research is so important. One of the most important things that we teach students here at all grade levels, age appropriately, is how to ask the right questions. The process of inquiry is something that is probably one of the most important skills that our students can learn. And one of the reasons why is because it's a very human tendency, I would say, to rush and try to solve problems that you haven't even really identified yet, right? I went into administration because I like to fix things, I like to make things happen. But stopping and understanding what the problem is that needs to be solved is crucial to solving it well. So the process of inquiry is a really important part of the research process. Understanding that this is also always going to be about problem solving, right? Teaching our students problem solving across the disciplines. This is not just something that happens in a science lab. This is not just something that happens in a math classroom. This also happens in an English room. This actually happens out on the field sometimes, figuring out how to solve problems. You need to have done your research well. You need to have the right questions to ask in order to be able to solve the problems well. And what we know is that in order for students to do this, they are going to best learn these kinds of skills, again, that are crucial to their success in the world. They're going to learn them best in a project-based environment. The reason why is because in a project-based environment, you're taking the skills that you've learned and you're applying them. Again, it's one thing to be able to kind of parrot back to your teacher what you've learned. It's a whole other thing to have to apply it to an actual problem. Now, the difference I would draw for you is this. A lot of times in math, students get into a rhythm of just solving a problem, right? Getting to the answer. And I remember, for example, taking algebra and really liking algebra because as long as I understood what the formula was, I could just plug the formula into anything and I'd get my answer and then I could go on to some other homework that I would rather be doing. It really wasn't until much later when I was asked to explain how I got to my solution that it started to make sense. And I think we've all been in this situation. When you have to explain what you're doing to somebody else, when you have to explain how you solved a problem, math or otherwise, that's where your learning goes more deeply. And in a project-based situation, that's exactly what students get to do. And those are the kinds of experiences that we are committed to providing for our students much more intentionally and broadly and deeply within our program. Now, the concept of open minds and courageous thinking is something that I think really gets me excited because it's core to who we are as King School. One of the things that we know is that we're in a tough spot right now in the world and certainly in a challenging spot in our country. I am a huge believer that our students can and should learn right here with all of us as adult models to learn what it means to disagree without fighting, to engage in civil discourse, and to be able to do this in a way that actually pushes them further to challenge their assumptions and, again, think about problem solving in different ways because they're challenged by those around them. That is a hallmark of our school. And we're actually going to be setting up lots of opportunities for that this year because we live in the world and we want to make sure that we are engaging our students appropriately in terms of the election and everything that else is going to go on around that. And it's going to be really tough, but it's also going to be excellent because in order to do this, our students have to be able to practice it in a place where they are safe and they are known. And it's courageous because when students actually have the skills to be able to communicate with one another that way, it actually puts them in a position to know that they can pretty much do anything. And what I really want is for students from this school to be the ones that people always point to and say, those are the kids who graduate here knowing that they can do this and that they can actually go out and make the world a better place. I don't think that's pie in the sky. I think it's actually happening, and I think we can do it even more when all of us get together and ensure that we allow them the space for really good debate that's based on what they are learning in their classrooms, evidence, research, and actually the capacity to apply that to not just to their work, but to their daily lives. We think that's very important. So the strategic vision itself then really kind of comes together in the academic excellence initiative that is again, the core and the essence of the strategic plan. Now, tonight, that is really going to be our focus, and what we're going to share with you are some examples of the ways that these philosophies are already manifest here in the school, but also how they're inspiring some new ideas for programs that we are going to continue to develop along the way. Now, the way that this plan has been constructed is that we have 9 initiatives altogether. And again, academic excellence is the first. The other 8 initiatives really are designed to support and enhance academic excellence. The reason why is because we are a school and academic excellence is what we do here. So everything else that we have as part of this plan is designed to help us as we claim this imperative of academic excellence, to weave through other elements that are going to allow us to go as far as we possibly can academically. So for example, we have initiatives in athletics and community partnerships that will enhance academic excellence. We have an initiative in wellness that will sustain it. We have an initiative in strategic enrollment management that will support it. We have an initiative in inclusion that will humanize it. We have initiatives in financial sustainability and facilities development that will fulfill it. And finally, we have an initiative in institutional identity that will help us to share our pride in both what we do and who we are. And so as we think about what all of these things mean, how this all comes together, we think about it like this. The approaches I'm describing this to you is going to continue to help us really grow and produce students who are engaged, and definitely students who are healthier and have a greater sense of purpose, and therefore perform better than their peers. That part is key. And what that means is that our students will be the ones who will really have a deep understanding of themselves as learners and have experiences that they can point back to that are marked by the great relationships that we know, again, are some of the best ways to tell what an excellent school that we are. All those experiences to point back to that will carry them forward when they graduate from King in ways that will make them dynamic, make them fascinating, and definitely make them prepared for the world that they're going to enter. Now, what we're thinking about with this too is that when we think about academic excellence, we all know about the traditional markers. There are the great grades, there are test scores, all of those things that we've come to expect. And of course, those all lead to the outcomes of great college choices as well. And happily, if you haven't taken a look at our college list yet, we know that all of that is working. And so what we're thinking a lot about is, in terms of academic excellence, how we kick this up to the next level. You're going to be hearing about some of this tonight. Again, it's going to go back to the vision that I've described to you. True academic excellence is marked by an excellent experience in learning. That makes all the difference. Again, it's not just about stuff. This is about learning, sustaining that learning, and retaining it in ways that makes you ready and hungry for more. That's what the world needs, and our students need us to provide this for them. As a student-centered institution, we are compelled to make this happen. And so, as we think about academic excellence tonight, now I think in many ways we get to the good part where you get to stop hearing from me and you get to start hearing from the folks who are actually making this happen. And so tonight, I'm really excited to invite some colleagues to the stage. In just a moment, I'm going to invite Amy Vorenberg to the stage. She, as you know, is our head of lower school. And we're going to start, though, with a video. And in the video that you're going to see, you're going to be, if you haven't already been, introduced to our new pre-K and kindergarten programs that are Reggio-inspired programs. And the work that the teachers in these classrooms are doing this year is nothing short of phenomenal. And that is not an exaggeration. Just talk to the parents of pre-K and K students and they will tell you the same. Now, I'm going to show you the video right now, and then after that, Amy is going to share a little bit more with you about the program and then give you a preview of a really exciting program that's actually taking place this spring, to which you will all be invited, and that is a really great example of the kind of learning experience you just heard me talk about. Oh, sorry. Let's try that one more time. There we go.
A 3-year-old comes into the classroom brand new. Many of them have never been in school before. Some of them that have, they're just learning language. They're just acquiring the ability to ask questions and to engage and to make meaning of the world around them. The children really, really, really get to develop a sense of self, build themselves within a community, and explore new and interesting topics. There are wonderful resources here for children to build, to make, to create. Everything is done with a sense of purpose and intention. Every material in the classroom, every material in the makerspace, in the gym, in the art room is geared with the children's interest and is built to incite imagination, creativity, exploration, and to give children critical thinking and problem-solving skills that they need for later life. I couldn't be more pleased with how this program at King, a Reggio approach to education, respects and honors childhood. It gives the children and the teachers and the parents a real opportunity to work together as a team to educate the children in the most appropriate ways possible for each child and for each family. And that's really special. Play is the work of young children. And when they get to play, they are not only learning and developing their social emotional intelligence and an ability to communicate, to negotiate, to problem solve, they're also learning letters, numbers, math skills. They're learning how to make patterns and how to conceptualize and sequence. But it's all done at their level. The classroom is something that they've built and that they are engaging in every day. Our curriculums come from their questions and their inquiry. And as they present an interest in a topic, in a subject, we surround ourselves with it. And as they get to kindergarten and first grade and on to middle school and high school and beyond, they are problem solvers. They are community members. They are, good citizens, and they are explorers. And they start that journey here in pre-K, and they just build upon it year after year until by the time they graduate, they're ready to take on the world.
Ready to take on the world. As our youngest learners have embraced exciting opportunities for exploration and discovery through our Reggio-inspired approach, we are building a strong foundation of skills for everything that lies ahead. We empower readers, writers, and mathematical thinkers. The bold vision of the strategic plan calls us to expand upon our foundation of academic excellence, so students master skills in these areas of study while also gaining skills to analyze and solve complex challenges. Today, I want to provide an example of what it will mean in the lower school for students to engage in a more project and problem-based, collaborative, engaging learning experience. In lower school, across all grades, projects come to life in subject areas, focusing on skill sets and activities. Projects that may sound familiar to lower school families include the State Fair or the Motion Carnival. And in just a month, we will add a global studies project that will offer additional open-ended learning opportunities to develop expertise about places in the world. For 8 days in early March, the entire lower school will dive into an in-depth, integrated study of Central and South American countries. This global studies work will culminate in the opening of our lower school Global Studies Museum, open for one night and one night only on March 12th, which is a Thursday. Mark your calendars. What does it mean to learn through a project like Global Studies? It means creating curriculum based on topics that are broad and varied within an overarching theme. Every student in the lower school will pose their own research questions. They will gather data, and they will work to interpret that data to share information with others as they build a museum that highlights the importance of learning about other people and cultures. With deeper knowledge and respect for life experience of others, in this case, others in Central and South America, our students begin to develop an inclusive understanding of the world. And that prepares children to thrive in a rapidly changing, connected world. As we embark on our global studies work, I am really positive that all lower school parents are going to watch your children's enthusiasm and capabilities grow as they tackle independent projects and demonstrate ownership of learning in powerful ways. So as I said, you are invited to the museum Thursday, March 12th at 4 p.m. We will cut the ribbon to open the Lower School Global Studies Museum. More broadly, I am very confident that the model envisioned by the strategic plan, the model of project and problem-based learning experiences. And it provides incredible opportunities for young children to gain skills needed to become nimble and courageous thinkers. And it's really fun to learn this way. Thank you.
So I think one of the things I love about the idea of this global studies research project that all of the lower school students are going to share together is that I think it bucks the notion that research is something that happens only in these kind of lofty areas of higher education. Actually, it couldn't be more appropriate for our youngest students to be learning this way. And if you imagine that this is how you begin to learn and continue to learn the entire time you're here at King. Imagine how powerful that is. And so with that, I'd like to now invite my colleague, Dr. Josh Deitch, who is the head of middle school, along with two of our middle school students, Max Wachter and Zach Liu, and they are going to be sharing about a student-led research project in their 8th grade.
Thank you, Dr. Eshu. Now, we're going to focus on the middle school. Middle school is a time to explore who we are as people and learners. One of the ways we do this is to provide the students with more choice, more research-informed experiences, and more opportunities to recognize that their voices matter. One project in English has been very focused on helping students understand their interests and to develop their thoughts into opportunities for deeper learning and investigation. Joining me tonight are two 8th grade students, Max Wachter, our 8th grade co-president, and Zach Liu. You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to have a conversation about the project you're doing in English right now. Sound good?
Yes.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So, Max and Zach, can you tell me a little bit about the project you've been doing and how it might be a little different than what you've come to expect in your classrooms?
Well, in 8th grade, English students were given 10 books to choose from. In January, students read the book of their choice. Throughout February and March, students research, write an essay, and create a presentation about a topic related to their book. For example, if I were reading Harry Potter, I could research the well-being of orphans in the tri-state area.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's been very different planning everything out ourselves and making our own project as opposed to being given one. Because there are so many options, it makes the class much more engaging.
I agree with Zach, and I feel a much greater connection with my book because I chose it instead of the teacher choosing it for me.
While I've worked on this project, I've really enjoyed being able to set my own schedule and read a book of my choice. That means I can read as much or as little as I want to every night.
Yeah, you can set your own speed.
That sounds really good. So what we're talking about is that you both have the ability to choose what you read and to think about the connections that you can draw from the book rather than your teacher telling you what to look for.
Yeah.
Great. So what have you been doing in class if all of you are reading different books?
Well, part of the project is the class is divided into groups of 4, and at the beginning of every class, you meet with your group and we set individual tasks so that we have something to work on. A task could be talking with your group, annotating, and a meeting with Ms. Hoos.
We also look for commonalities between our current books and the 2 other books that we have read this year, which are To Kill a Mockingbird and Persepolis.
That sounds really interesting. So do you mind telling us what you're going to do next?
Well, I was trying to find the connection between the main problem in To Kill a Mockingbird and my book, and I realized with Ms. Hoos's help that both protagonists have to deal with negative stereotypes. In both books, the main character has to deal with stigmas about who they are. Both characters hide parts of themselves to prevent themselves from being stigmatized. I think that I want to research stigma, but I'm not sure yet what aspect of it I want to focus on. The point is that I have the choice to explore any topic related to my book.
Yeah, for me personally, I've been reading a book called Boot Camp, and one of the most significant parts is solitary confinement and the effect it has on the main character. So for the research element of my project, I've decided I'm going to research solitary confinement and the effects of it.
So it sounds like you're exploring things that are resonating with you as you've read these different books.
Yeah.
Great. So if you have a final thought on this project, what would you like to share with this audience out here?
Well, as I said before, throughout this experience, it's been really great planning my own schedule because it's taught me to be more self-sufficient and to plan ahead.
I agree with Zach, and indubitably, this is a better way for students to learn. They are much more engaged in their work due to the fact that they must create their own question related to their book that they are interested in. I think this teaches kids how to think instead of what to think, and it's helping me to be more independent with just the right of help from my teacher.
So first, Zach and Max really wanted to work the word indubitably into this. So great job.
Thank you.
And now, thank you, Max and Zach, for sharing your experiences in English. It's a wonderful example of the ways we can blend our existing commitment to students, building essential skills with our growing focus on their developing mastery in research, inquiry, and problem solving. As you all just heard, as the strategic plan calls us to be intentional in our focus on the student experience, we can expect that our classroom environments will change, we think, for the better. At King, national research informs our own decisions regarding teaching and learning. Such research shows that as students go through their time in school, their sense of curiosity, creativity, and motivation decrease. I'm so excited to be at King because the expert teachers here appreciate that the middle years are those touchstone years where children either see themselves as successful in school or see it only as something to get through. Guided by this new strategic plan, we will be intentionally crafting an approach to teaching and learning so students will actively engage in a healthy and balanced way. As you just heard, middle school students will dive into open-ended challenges in English. They will also learn to ask the right questions, to tackle complex problems in math, seek out new ways to understand the world in history and science, and communicate their experiences in world language and performing arts and visual arts and digitally, and so on, and so on. All while learning how to balance their interests, priorities, and health and wellness. Middle school students at King will be deeply engaged, personally motivated, and will have the right skills and tools in place to tackle whatever may be put in front of them. Max and Zach, thanks again for sharing with us. It's exciting to hear about the ways our students bring their whole selves to their school experience. I can't wait to see what you all and your classmates do next. Air high five.
So I just want to say that at the most recent rehearsal that I attended with those two guys, indubitably was not in the script at that point. So I'm impressed, very impressed. And I think one of the things I just want to point out also, you heard the boys talking a lot about choice and how much they value that choice. And one of the things that we think is important is that is not just that students have choice, but they have the right kinds of choices. So for example, you wouldn't want to give kids 40 different books to choose from, or a random selection of books, right? This is where the teacher is so important. There's a term that I like to use a lot called shaping the path, where you give people just enough choice where they feel empowered, but not so much that it leads to paralysis. And that kind of dance that teachers are getting really, really good at doing is putting students in the position to learn best because they understand where they are developmentally, but also offer them the chance to really push themselves and learn something new and learn it in a new way. That's exactly what we're talking about. And so to that end, it makes me really excited now to introduce you to Dr. Victoria Shulman, who is the Director of Science Research in our upper school. and Wafa Normani, a junior in the upper school, and they are going to be highlighting the ways in which the upper school science program empowers students to become confident and creative problem solvers. And they will be followed by Marnie Sadlowski, who is going to speak to you more about how this helps to strengthen research skills and helps students develop really sophisticated understanding. So, Victoria, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eshu. In the book, In Search of Deeper Learning, authors Hal Mehta and Sarah Fine point out, and I quote, "In 1970, the top 3 skills employers asked for were reading, writing, and arithmetic. In 2015, they were complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. Thus, the education that would have sufficed in 1970 will not prepare students for the workforce today. However, not much has changed in the standard high school curriculum since 1970." End quote. This reality requires schools to explore new ways to not only teach content, but to also teach skill building such that students are comfortable overcoming undefined challenges. For example, a company may ask an employee to build a program to increase sales or reach a demographic of potential clients. The employee isn't handed an action plan in these situations that will get the job done. The employee has been asked to create the solution. As such, assessments in schools can no longer be regurgitations of facts. Rather, they must encourage students to use the content as merely a conduit to learn and hone critical thinking and problem-solving skills. This is why the science department shifted to include more project-based learning nearly 4 years ago. Our goal was to let students pursue something they were genuinely curious about, while simultaneously weaving in the necessary skill building into all of our science courses. Now, students really engage with the scientific method of observing, questioning, even challenging what they've been told, and then hypothesizing, designing an experiment or a solution, testing it, analyzing their data, and reasoning through all of that information to come to sound, valid conclusions. With this approach, students are building transferable skills that will serve them well in any discipline. Exemplifying how the upper school science program impacts students, let me share 2 student reflections. The first, in an email from a recent graduate, "Thank you for advising me on my project with the Department of Transportation of Stanford. It helped me jumpstart my career. I now work for the city of Stanford, and I am learning so much about the field I want to pursue in college and professionally." And the second one from a current student. "At first, I was really overwhelmed. But after I thought about how to test my hypothesis, I realized it wasn't that hard. I would like to solve problems with this mindset in the future so that I can feel more confident and independent. As you can see, we help students develop the ability to navigate very complex challenges. This work, both now and going forward, will truly prepare students for a rapidly changing world." With that, let me introduce to you one such student. Through King's commitment to research-based learning opportunities, Wafa Nomani's confidence and ability to tackle difficult challenges has improved tremendously. She is now tackling one of the most aggressive cancers at one of the most prestigious institutions for medical research in the nation, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. With that, please welcome Wafa Nomani.
Hi everyone, and thank you Dr. Shulman for inviting me to share my experience in science research at King. In the past 3 years, my science classes have allowed me to pursue research projects that have gotten me really excited about my learning. I'm not just sitting in a lecture for every class. Instead, I'm being challenged and encouraged by my teachers to actively engage in my own learning through projects. First, I learned a lot doing pre-planned lab activities. I enjoy these because instead of just accepting what I heard in a lecture, I can see it happen with my own eyes. This helps the information stick better as well. These activities have also taught me skills that I later applied to the science fair. In my 9th grade science fair, I merely dipped my toe in research, and although my project wasn't revolutionary, it helped me gain a much better understanding of the scientific method. Then, in 10th grade, I felt more confident, and I proposed a more ambitious science fair project. My motive was to try to make a difference in this world and figure out something that hasn't been discovered before. With my interest in health and medicine, I wondered if my grandparents' medications for diabetes and cholesterol levels chemically interacted. Inspired, I sent a proposal to Dr. Shulman to test the synergistic effects of metformin and simvastatin on the TGF-beta signaling pathway in C. elegans. I initially thought that my proposal would not get approved because of time or lack of resources, or maybe because it wasn't testable. But to my amazement, Dr. Shulman graciously approved my proposal on the conditions that we could secure the drugs from a pharmaceutical research company. We did, and I moved forward with designing my experimental plans. This was definitely the moment when I realized that anything is possible. I don't have to limit myself or my imagination. I can do anything. However, throughout this process, I encountered flaws in my experimental design. Sometimes unexpected things happened, and I needed to troubleshoot on the spot. This was definitely an important and valuable skill I learned throughout experimentation, and it helped me finish my project. When I presented at the King Science Fair, I won 2nd place from the outside judges, and I was invited to present at the Columbia University Undergraduate Science Research Symposium, among other students from prestigious institutions such as Columbia, Emory, NYU, Rutgers, and Yale. Additionally, because of my science fair project, I recently secured an internship at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where I'm currently trying to develop a nanoparticle drug delivery system for the treatment of pancreatic cancer. Going into my internship amongst graduate students and postdocs, 10+ years my seniors, I definitely felt overwhelmed at first. But I had enough preparation from my previous science fair research projects to be able to handle it. This has truly been an unforgettable experience for me. Through a high school science fair project, I stepped into the shoes of a researcher and into the real world. I have wanted to do this forever, and I thought I wouldn't be able to do it until I was much older. I am so thankful for King's research training and project-based learning, because I can do this now as a junior. Every day in the lab, I get a rush of adrenaline and excitement. Every day I discover something new. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wafa, and thank you, Dr. Shulman. I want to call all of our attention to Wafa's phrase that she just uttered, rush of adrenaline and excitement. One of the advantages of engaging students in real-life project-based learning experiences is that they get to experience the rush of doing real work, work that feels important because it is important. And when students, particularly teenagers, know that their work is important, that it has real-world consequences and connections, their work is more likely to inspire better learning. As both Wafa and Dr. Shulman point out, it's moving from the abstract to the applied, from the abstract to the concrete task of meaning making that makes a learning experience like those we've just heard about so memorable and lasting. We know that students who are engaged in meaning making will create lasting memories, and as a result, they're going to learn more. As research biologist Dr. Hope Yaron says, quote, 5 days in the field is worth more than a semester behind a desk, unquote. And this truth doesn't just apply to science. Indeed, when Dr. Shulman speaks about the scientific method, we should recognize in its rhythms so many parts of our curriculum: learning to ask insightful questions, creating a hypothesis, engaging in evidence gathering, evidence analysis, evidence testing, drawing conclusions, changing our minds, and yes, failing and starting again. So, tonight I'll focus on project-based learning in our upper school, drawing upon our programs specifically in history and the visual arts. Some of you may recall from a previous State of School presentation that history faculty member Patrick O'Neill introduced a two-part course in our upper school that combined classroom work with field study. Field study is an approach to teaching that, in his case, engaged the students with the troubles of Northern Ireland, and the students traveled to Northern Ireland to experience what they'd studied in the classroom, field study. They interviewed politicians, religious leaders, civilians who had actually participated in the troubles, which were no longer abstract, but very, very real for our young students. Those students speak about what they learned about the complex political, religious, and social dimensions of our humanity with much more passion and engagement than you might typically see in an adolescent. Moving forward, this field study approach, an approach we've also utilized in courses like archaeology, for example, will be particularly important as we seek to maximize our students' engagement in their own learning. The adolescent, we know, needs this type of engagement to learn best. Teenagers are working on developing a self, a core of self, individuating from the adults in their lives and seeking their own purpose and meaning. Teens always ask, why do I have to know this? If the adults in their lives don't give them compelling answers, we sometimes lose them. I say sometimes because we know many kids at King can do school. Teaching that focuses on those research skills of good questioning, testing hypotheses, learning to analyze evidence to really understand deep truths or solve challenging human problems makes students step out of the comfort of doing school and instead step, in the case I just described, into the world of doing history or doing art. Rand Lapola, the chair of our Visual Arts and Design Department, worked this year with the visual arts faculty across the lower, middle, and upper schools to develop a model of engaged learning called the OPEN curriculum. OPEN is shorthand for original, personal, expressive, and novel. And I'll give you a sense now of how the OPEN program is creating opportunities specifically for upper school students. Ms. Lapola is working with our students to build an OPEN mentor program that will connect students with experts in the field in which they're interested in the arts. This teaching approach acknowledges that learning today must connect our students to community partnerships and to real practitioners beyond the classroom who can inspire our students with possibilities for future study. Upper school students who are interested in architecture, for example, can debate with a mentor, an architect, about how architecture can create healthy and inspiring work environments. These are just a few of so many examples of how our curriculum already offers applied learning opportunities for our students. Our strategic plan now calls us to empower our students even more intentionally and consistently to be relentlessly and deeply curious about their world. I am so excited for the future of engaged research and inquiry-oriented work at King. This is the best place to be a student right now as we engage in the present and keep our eyes firmly on the horizon. Thank you very much.
I'm guessing you probably are feeling a little bit like I am right now. I walked on the stage feeling like a reasonably intelligent woman. I'm questioning that a little bit right now. Wafa, you were amazing. I think that what I love so much about what you just heard from our upper school team here is, once again, the difference between, as Marnie was saying, doing school, where it's just doing the work that you have to do to get to the next stage and therefore kind of pushing a fast forward button, and instead learning how to think and work like a mathematician, learning how to think and work like a historian or a biologist. Take your pick. We can do that here. We have the right teachers who understand why this is important for students. And that's why, as we look ahead, we understand that all of these great kinds of programs that have been building in the past few years are really ready to go broad and go deep in this school. And so this is why this strategic plan is so exciting to me. This is not a small little incremental school improvement plan. This is us putting a stake in the ground and claiming our place as one of the best schools in the nation. I'll just own this one. It was really important to me that we really started to think this way about ourselves, because I've seen schools all around the country. I've never seen a school quite like this. And I really do think that we have what it takes, and we will continue to build ourselves out in such a way that we will claim our place amongst the best schools in this country because of this approach, and because we as a school are bold enough and courageous enough to actually give students what they need. We've always been good at doing that. That's actually part of our history. But given how the world has changed, we know that the time to do this is now. And let's face it, I'm not still driving the same car that I drove back in 1985 when I was in high school. It was a Honda hatchback, by the way. And I shouldn't be, right? We should not expect that what used to work is going to work now. And you heard that wonderful quote from Victoria. And that's why I'm just so thrilled to have the partnership of the board and their enthusiasm for this direction, this way of thinking and being, and all that it can do for our students. And so I do want to take a minute, and I'm not quite sure who's got the lights right now, but if we can maybe have the lights come up just a little bit. I do want to recognize the members of the Board of Trustees. There we go. Oh, yeah. There it is. The members of the Board of Trustees, and I am going to ask you to stand for just a minute. So for all the trustees, could you please stand for a minute, because first we want to recognize and thank you for your leadership. And if I could ask you to stay standing for just a minute. I know everybody already saw your pictures up, but I just want everybody in the room to get a sense of who these folks are, because tonight in particular, it's been really important to the trustees, and I think, led especially by Jess Durbel, who is the chair of our trusteeship committee, that all of you in the community get not just a sense of who they are by sight, but also in conversation. The trustees are here to talk to you about anything in this plan. They're all extremely well versed in it because we all crafted it together. And I know that a lot of people aren't really even sure sometimes what trustees do, and they would love to tell you about that too. So this is going to be a great opportunity tonight as we go out of the room together to celebrate the plan, to also know that all of them are really excited to talk to you about whatever you want to talk to them about. So trustees, you can sit down now, but thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And so again, I'm grateful to all of you for coming out. I'm especially grateful, I think, to see so many of my colleagues here tonight. They got a preview of this before, so the idea that they're coming in for a second round, that is commitment. That's for sure. And again, as we look forward to the plan, we're going to be rolling this out, obviously. You're going to get to read more about it soon. We're going to keep coming back to you with lots of information and stories to tell you about how this continues to develop and how it's actually taking root here in the school. Again, you can already start to see some of it happening. So, for example, I'm sure that all the lower school parents are definitely going to be there for the Lower School Global Studies Museum night. Obviously, you're going to be there. But I'll tell you what, I'll give you a special gold star if you do not have a child in the lower school and you come. That's actually part of the school that is your school. And if you're interested in what we're talking about here, that would be a great way for you to experience it. I think everybody should also make an effort to go to the science fair. That, again, is a great way to understand from students themselves how this kind of teaching and learning is impacting their lives. And we'll be in coffees, we'll do this at State of the School when we share more with you, but we could not be more excited about where we're going, and frankly, we're just chomping at the bit to do more. So happy to talk to you more tonight. Also, again, thank you so much for coming, everybody. Let's go have a drink. Take care.